Okay, thank you. Welcome, everyone. I know there's still a few people joining, but we're going to get started. So, thank you for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Beth Cohen King, and I'm the marketing director at Margolis and Bloom. Uh, Margolis and Bloom works with its clients to find the best estate planning and elder law solution for each client's unique situation and goals. We bring this effort We bring to this effort 30 years of experience and a commitment to providing the highest level of personalized service. So today we are presenting using annuities and mass health planning for nursing home residents. This will be presented by Harry S. Margolis. And just a little housekeeping before we get started. If you have questions during the presentation, please type them into the question box in your control panel on the right side of your computer. And we will have time for questions at the end of the presentation, and we'll address those. So, a little bit about our founder, Harry S. Margolis. He has been representing seniors, individuals with special needs, and their families since he started Elder Law Services, the predecessor of Margolis and Bloom, in June of 1987. Since then, he and the firm as a whole have helped thousands of clients pay for long-term care, grapple with the incapacity of a family member, and plan for safe and productive futures for their children and grandchildren. Harry served as the editor of the Elder Law Report, a monthly newsletter for attorneys, for 3 decades. His leadership in the field has been recognized by his peers in his selection as a fellow of both the National Academy of Elder Law Attorneys and the American College of Trust and Estate Counsel. He has been named a super lawyer since 2005, and in different years recognized as one of the top 100 attorneys in New England. In 2015, Best Lawyers named him Elder Law Lawyer of the Year in Massachusetts. But really, Mr. Margolis' passion is explaining complex legal issues to consumers, to clients in his practice, to Massachusetts consumers through the information on our website and on our site's blog, and nationally on 2 websites he founded, which is elderlawanswers.com and specialneedsanswers.com. Most recently, he began answering consumer questions online at askharry.info, and we're going to go back to that at the end as well. He strongly believes that the best legal solutions are achieved through the partnership of well-informed clients and attorneys who combine great technical expertise and an ability to listen. So without further ado, Harry, take it away.
Hey, thanks, Beth. So we're going to talk about, as Beth told you, and as you know since you signed up, about using annuities in mass health planning. And so here's just a little synopsis of how it's going to go. I'm going to give an overview, talk about the basic rules of both mass health and of the rules around annuities. We'll show how they apply in the case of married nursing home residents, and then we'll talk about how they can be used, not to as great an advantage, but can be used by single nursing home residents. And we'll also talk about potential drawbacks, because with every planning technique, there's pros and cons. And we'll do takeaways from the program, and then, as Beth said, we will answer your questions for as long as, we'll see how much time that all takes. So, annuities are kind of an amazing thing because it's a technique that some people probably think shouldn't exist, that can really help mostly spouses of nursing home residents to protect their assets and maintain their security while the spouses in the nursing home can get mass health to cover their care. And as I said earlier, there's some lesser circumstances where a single nursing home resident might be able to benefit from an immediate annuity. But beware, the rules are complex, they change a lot, and as I mentioned, there are pros and cons. So the immediate annuity may be the right answer, or is the right answer for a lot of people, but it's not necessarily the right answer for everybody, because there are sometimes other better alternatives. So basic rules, as you probably know, Mass Health covers nursing home care in Massachusetts, but you have to qualify by being poor under its definition of poverty, and the basic definition is you're only allowed to have $2,000 in countable assets if you're the individual in the nursing home, and if you are the spouse of the individual in the nursing home, you may only have $123,600 in assets, in countable assets, and you may wonder why such a strange figure, and the answer is because they adjusted each year for inflation, so that's the 2018 figure. So think of it together, a couple can keep $125,000, and the spouse in the nursing home can then get MassHealth. That's $125,000 in countable assets. Countable assets are basically everything with the exception of your home. While there's a equity limit for single people in nursing homes on the value of the home of $858,000 in equity, there's no limit if there's a spouse living in the home. So you can have a $1 million house, a $1.5 million house, and still get MassHealth if your other assets are down to under $125,000. And for that, they count just about everything. They count your retirement plan, if you have other real estate, they'll count that. You're allowed one car, but if you have a second car, they'll count the value of that. So just about everything else is counted against the limit. So what's an immediate annuity? An immediate annuity is a contract with an insurance company where you give them a certain amount of money and they promise to pay you a monthly amount. So you give them $100,000, and under this contract they will pay you $1,000 a month for a period of time, and the period of time may be a specific period of time, say 10 years. That'd be reasonably good return. So you get $120,000 back. You gave them $100,000, or for your life. And you can also have a combination of the two. So, but it's basically a stream of income, almost a private pension that you purchase by writing a check to an insurance company. And the reason this works is a good planning technique for married people is if they have more than $125,000, the spouse of the nursing home resident can take the money and purchase the annuity and take the money above $125,000 and purchase an annuity and term an asset that exceeds the $125,000 limit into a stream of income, and there's no limit on the healthy spouse's income. So, but the annuity has to meet a couple of ground rules to qualify, and the term of art is it has to be actuarially sound, which is a MassHealth Medicaid rule. And to be actuarially sound, it has to meet two requirements. First, if you buy an annuity with a specific term that it'll pay for, that term has to be shorter than your life expectancy. So if your life expectancy is 3 years and you buy an annuity that will pay for 5 years, well, 2 of those years are considered to be a transfer of assets, and they cause an ineligibility period for Medicaid, a penalty period. So if your life expectancy is 3 years, you can only buy a 3-year annuity. The problem with this is that currently on the market, you can't buy an annuity that's shorter than 5 years that meets the second requirement. And the second requirement is that whatever you pay for the annuity, you got to get back during the lifetime of the annuity, during the term of the annuity. And the problem is returns, or the interest rates are so low, the annuity companies will not pay you back all the money you paid into it unless they can hold the money for a relatively long period of time, at least 5 years. So that's our problem. So those are the ground rules. So then the question is, how can you use them? And let me introduce you to Mr. and Mrs. Blue. They have $300,000 in countable assets. Mr. Blue has moved to a nursing home. They're spending $12,000 a month on the nursing home, and they if they don't do anything, they'll spend $12,000 a month until they've run through $175,000. They'll be down to $125,000, and then MassHealth will pick up the cost of care. But Mrs. Blue really doesn't want that to happen. So what she does is she buys an actuarially sound immediate annuity worth $175,000. And the day after she completes that transaction, Mr. Blue will be eligible for benefits, and she will receive a stream of payments for those 5 years that we mentioned is the shortest you can purchase the annuity. So she will get $35,000 a year for, and probably a little bit more because they'll pay a little bit of interest, so she'll get something like $3,000 a month for 5 years, get her a little more than $175,000 back, and at the end of those 5 years, she will be whole, at least in theory, and I'll come back to that. And another rule I probably should mention earlier, the other reason this works, there are a couple of reasons this works. One is, as I mentioned before, there's no requirement that she pay any of her income towards Mr. Blue's care. So she gets $3,000 a month, and she gets to keep her Social Security, and she can do what she wants with it. Second, while she has to get under $125,000 to become eligible, for Mr. Blue to become eligible for MassHealth, once he's eligible, they don't look at her assets again. So I often compare it to dancing the limbo. She has to get under the $125,000 stick, but once he's been approved, she can stand up again. And so she can accumulate the funds as they come in. So another requirement for the annuity is, so the annuity, as we've discussed, is a 5-year annuity, but there's a chance that she's going to pass away during those 5 years, because it could happen to anybody. And so she can name on the annuity who will receive the balance of the payments after she passes away, and that's called the remainder person or remainderman on the annuity. And she has to name the state as the recipient of those payments if she dies before the 5 years are up. So the state would get reimbursed for MassHealth payments on Mr. Blue's behalf. So that's a potential drawback, but in most cases, preserving the income stream makes it worth doing anyway. A couple other requirements for annuities. They're non-assignable, so she has to receive the income payments. She can't give them to anyone else. And it has to be this regular payment. So in years past, people came up with some creative annuities which might not pay her anything or only pay her a few $100s a month for the 5 years, and at the end of 5 years pay her the balance of the annuity. But now it's got to be this straightforward, regular annuity with regular monthly payments. So, so as said, she can start saving those payments, and until she, after 5 years, gets back to $300,000. The reality is that's probably not going to happen. For one thing, Mr. Blue is going to, it's not going to happen in terms of her getting all the money back. For one thing, Mr. Blue is going to have to pay his income to the nursing home. So before they were living on both their incomes, and now she's living on her own income plus the annuity payments. So given that circumstance, she's probably going to be spending some of those annuity payments each month as they come in, and won't get back to her full $300,000 where she started, but she'll get some of it back, or a lot more than she would get back if she just spent down to $125,000. Because if she didn't do this, and she ended up down to $125,000, she'd still have the same problem. She'd be trying to live, for the most part, on her income, though there are some spousal income protections. And that's so this is a question of what are some of the drawbacks. So, and this depends on the circumstances. So if Mrs. Blue has a high income, then she'll get to keep her income plus the annuity payments. And Mr. Blue's income would have gone to the nursing home whether or not she bought an annuity. But if Mrs. Blue's income is low, then under the MassHealth rules, if Mr. Blue is getting MassHealth, she can keep his income, some or all of his income. So this is it's called the spousal impoverishment rules, but it's supposed to be really the rules to protect spouses from impoverishment, which says that if the healthy spouse, who they call a community spouse, if the healthy spouse's income is low, she's entitled to a share of the nursing home spouse's income. And, and so what happens when she gets the annuity payments is she loses that share of his income. So his income has to go to the nursing home because her income is no longer low because she's got these annuity payments. So in those circumstances, for people who are lower income, the annuity is not quite as beneficial as it is for spouses who are higher income, who aren't getting any of the nursing home spouse's income in any case. Hope that's clear. So, okay, we'll make it clear. We'll break it down. So let's say Mr. Blue's income is $2,000 a month, Mrs. Blue's income is $1,000 a month, and Mrs. Blue's allowance, this is what MassHealth calculates she needs to live on, is $3,000 a month. In that case, without the annuity income, while Mr. Blue is in the nursing home and on MassHealth, she gets all of his income. But if she's getting annuity that's paying $3,000 a month, then her income is now $4,000 a month. So this exceeds the level for her income protection that's set by MassHealth. So, which is on the previous slide was $3,000 a month. Now she doesn't have to give anything to the nursing home. She can keep her own income plus the annuity payments, but she can't keep any of Mr. Blue's income. So his $2,000 a month now is going to have to go to the nursing home. So over 5 years, his $2,000 a month adds up to $120,000, which they actually don't get. In effect, they lose by buying the annuity. I'm not sure if that's quite the right terminology, but just it limits the benefit of the annuity in this kind of situation. Another drawback, which I don't think is as much a drawback, is annuities pay a very low rate of return. But if you're saving $12,000 a month or something like that, in nursing home payments, it really doesn't matter what the rate of return is on the annuity. If Mrs. Blue has to move to a nursing home and she's getting these annuity payments of $3,000 a month, she's going to have to pay those to the nursing home. So in those situations, if you think that the community spouse, who is the healthier spouse because she's still living at home, may need nursing home care herself relatively soon, then maybe the annuity is not as good an option. I want to mention before we get into the single nursing home resident and how they might benefit from an immediate annuity. Another issue that we often see is Mr. Blue goes to the nursing home and they have $300,000 in countable assets, but $200,000 of that might be Mr. Blue's IRA. And the problem is that the annuity has to be payable to Mrs. Blue, who's the one who's living at home, and you can't just transfer IRAs, you have to liquidate them and pay the tax on them. So in order for Mrs. Blue to use Mr. Blue's IRA to buy an annuity for herself, she's going to have to liquidate it, and they're going to have $200,000 of income that year, and they're going to have to pay taxes on it. Now they might also have some health care expenses, which they'll be able to deduct against that income, and it may be possible, depending on the timing, to take the distributions over 2 calendar years. So there may be ways to mitigate this, but that can be a cost that people don't anticipate and at least should be considered. It may be you got no choice. This is still the best option, but it's a cost to consider. So just to summarize, for many married couples where one spouse goes to a nursing home where they have assets over $125,000, it often makes sense for the healthy spouse, so-called community spouse, to turn the excess assets into an income stream, and that doesn't have to be spent on the nursing home spouse's care. And so the healthy spouse can receive that income and hopefully save it up so she gets back at least close to where she was before her husband went to the nursing home. So we do that a lot. What we do much less often, but every once in a while, is buy immediate annuities for single individuals. And as we'll go through this, what this is almost an arbitrage. When a single individual buys an immediate annuity, they also convert an excess asset into an income stream so they can get MassHealth coverage immediately. But it's not as big a benefit because the income, the payments they're getting every month, for two reasons. One, the payments they're getting every month have to be paid to the nursing home as part of the resident's income. And two, as we discussed before, even for the marital annuity, when the resident dies, to the extent the state has paid for their care, the annuity payments, the future annuity payments, are going to have to go to the state, assuming there are any left. And I call it arbitrage because the result is basically that the nursing home resident pays the MassHealth rate for the nursing home care rather than the private pay rate. And there can be a substantial differential between the two. So if the private pay rate is $12,000 a month, the MassHealth rate might be $8,000 a month. So using this method, you reduce the cost by about $4,000 a month. Now, eventually, you may or may not run out of money anyway. It's just you stretch it longer. So that's by way of introduction, and I hope an example will explain how this works. So Mr. Green has $100,000 in savings. He purchases an actuarially sound annuity for $100,000, and he qualifies for MassHealth. This annuity pays him $2,000 a month for a little more than 4 years. He pays that with his other income to the nursing home. So while he's alive, he's not really getting any benefit from this. So does this make sense, or when does it make sense? So, what these numbers are going to show is it makes more sense if Mr. Green already has a lot of income. So if the nursing home is charging $12,000 a month, MassHealth rate is $8,000 a month, and Mr. Green's income is $5,000 a month. If he's paying $12,000 a month, his money's going to run out in a little over 2 years, about 14 months, because he's paying $5,000 a month from his income, and he's paying $7,000 a month from his savings. And so 7 times 14 gets you to about $100,000. But if he buys an annuity, now he stretches his money from 14 months to about 33 months because the MassHealth rate is the MassHealth rate is $8,000 a month. He's paying $5,000 a month. I have this right, actually? No, he's actually, this slide is wrong. So it actually stretches longer in a way because the MassHealth rate is $8,000 a month. He has his $5,000 of income, and he has his $2,000 a month coming from the annuity. So MassHealth is actually only paying $1,000 a month for those 4 years. And depending on how long he lives, so if he only lives 4 years, well, the annuity's done, and there's nothing saved. But if he lives for shorter than 4 years, he'll ultimately, or not him, because he won't be alive, but his heirs will ultimately get some money. So here's an example. If he lives 2 years, he'll be able to keep $32,000 or so for his family. And here's how this works. Here, I have the right numbers here. So the MassHealth rate is $8,000 a month. He's paying $5,000 a month of his own income plus $2,000 a month of the annuity income. So the MassHealth cost is $1,000 a month. Over 24 months, MassHealth pays $24,000. At the end of 2 years, um, so there's 50 months of annuity payments. He's used up 24 of them. There's going to be 26 more annuity payments after he dies at $2,000 a month, totaling $56,000 still coming in. So 56,000 comes in. It pays back MassHealth what it's paid out over those 2 years. So they paid out $24,000. You subtract that from the $56,000, and there's $32,000 left that gets paid to the family. So it's a very morbid calculation, unfortunately, because 2 years may be more or less the prime amount of time, because if he lives longer, there's less money continuing to be paid from the annuity, and there's more money that has to be paid to MassHealth, so that $32,000 declines. And if he lives shorter, well, there's more money left, but he might have saved some money anyway by not doing anything. So I guess in our numbers, he only has enough money for about 14 months. So it potentially could save money for the family, but we're not talking about huge amounts. So, so in terms of takeaways, number one is you see the rules are complicated. MassHealth can change them at any time. And we've only been talking about one planning option today, immediate annuities. There are, we'll be doing a lot of other webinars, and there are a lot of other planning options, and everybody's circumstance is different. So, let's see if I have any slides. Another slide there. But so everyone's circumstance is different. So don't just go to this. Everybody, before they do this, should consult with an elder law attorney and tell them about their situation, because often there can be exempt transferees who can transfer assets to. You can use pooled disability trusts, are often good mechanisms for planning. There are lots of different kinds of planning options depending on the circumstances. One thing there's something called spousal refusal. There's something called an increased resource allowance. All these are different planning techniques which we don't use as often as private annuities, but for the right person, the right client, the right situation, it can often be a much better solution. So always consult with an elder law attorney before choosing this strategy.
Okay, thank you so much, Harry. It is actually very clear how complex each of these family situations can be. It's very bespoke, and it needs thoughtful consideration. So thanks for helping to make that clearer. I want to note that we've also placed our legal guide in the box for you to download. I do see that we've had a few questions come in. So we're going to take a look at those. If we don't get to your questions, we will follow up after the presentation. And like I mentioned earlier, that askharry.info is a great resource, a great place to ask more questions as they may arise. So please don't hesitate to reach out through there. So just give me a second as I look through. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to read it from over there, I think. Okay. Well, here, I do have one that says, I have an annuity that I bought with IRA money, so I have a minimum withdrawal required and pay taxes on it every year. Does this count toward what I would pay for a nursing home if I need to go to one?
So that sounds like a deferred annuity as opposed to an immediate annuity. So that's that kind of annuity is really an investment vehicle, and presumably you can withdraw the whole thing at any time. There might be some penalties for doing so, but since you can withdraw at any time, it's not going to be treated as an income stream. It's going to be treated as an asset and needs to be spent down against the countable asset limit. Now, usually within the annuity, you can annuitize it, but and turn it into an immediate annuity. But as it stands now, even though you have a minimum distribution requirement, you don't have a maximum distribution limitation. So you could take out the whole thing, so it'll be treated as a countable asset.
Okay. Okay, so what is the table used to calculate life expectancy, and why does MassHealth care that the that the payments be equal? So let me just repeat that. What's the table used to calculate life expectancy, and why does MassHealth care that the payments be equal?
So I should know the answer to the first question, and to be honest, I'm not sure which table they use, but the IRS has a number of tables, and I'm not sure if the regulations say that they use one in particular or can use any one of them. Um, so, so if you send me an email, send an email to firm@margolis.com with that question, I will send you a response. I'll find out exactly which table. In terms of them being equal, it's because they felt like people were trying to game the system before when they had the unequal payments. So if we go to so the example of the single individual, Mr. Green, who's getting $2,000 a month and paying that and defraying MassHealth's cost. Well, what if he were just getting $200 a month? Would it be possible for him to get that and then have a balloon payment of $90,000 when he dies? And would that, I mean, would that hurt MassHealth? I guess maybe not, because they're the remainderment on it anyways. They get reimbursed. But I think they thought that there were ways that they were getting cheated out of their rightful payment.
Okay. Can designating the Commonwealth as the remainderment be expressly limited to the extent of MassHealth benefits paid?
Not anymore. So it used to be we'd write in the beneficiary designation, as your language says, the Commonwealth is paid up to the amount of the MassHealth benefits that is paid out. It gets reimbursed. But now they require you just name them as the beneficiary. Now they're only entitled, I think the end result's the same thing, because they're only entitled to get reimbursed what they paid out. But you kind of feel a little less secure because it doesn't have a limitation in the language.
Okay, thank you. And then some more here. So it is my understanding that an immediate annuity must be quote unquote MassHealth friendly. Is this still true? And what should you look for when placing an immediate annuity for a client?
Yeah, so MassHealth friendly encompasses the rules we discussed. First, it has to be actuarially sound, but the other the main other issue is it has to be non-assignable. So you can't change the beneficiary, and you have to name them as the remainder beneficiary. And if you meet those requirements, and it has to have you can't change the payment structure either. But if it has all those requirements, it's MassHealth friendly.
Okay. Some more. So what if the majority of investable assets, excluding your house, are in IRAs split between both spouses? This is generally probably more complex.
Yeah, I mean that's a problem we alluded to. I mean if it's in the nursing home spouse, if it's in the community spouse's name, it can be annuitized within the IRA, and so that doesn't really present a big problem. But the extent it's in the nursing home spouse's name, you got to move it over, and you have these higher tax payments. Now, you're going to have to pay taxes on the IRA someday. It's going to have to be withdrawn, but typically you want to defer that as long as possible rather than paying it up front. Now, if someone is ill and you can anticipate that, and they're not in a nursing home yet, but you can anticipate that they're going to need that kind of care in coming years, you could accelerate the withdrawal. So rather than you have a $200,000 annuity, rather than taking $200,000 out in 1 year and paying whatever the tax rate is on the marginal tax rate is on some of that money, you could take out $40,000 a year for 5 years, and you'll be in a lower tax bracket, and will kind of cushion the effect of that.
Okay. Is life insurance a countable asset for MassHealth?
So a whole life policy that has a cash value is a countable asset, and so it's the cash value that's counted. Term policy is not countable because there's no cash value, and if you borrow, so for each whole life policy, if we have someone who's applying, we take a look at it and with the client decide whether they want to liquidate it or borrow against it, because if you say it has a $20,000 cash value, if you borrow out the $20,000, then and spend that down, whether it's buying annuity or in some other way, then you then it's cash value. It has cash value, but it's minimal, so it fits within either the $2,000 or the $125,000 limit. So you got to look at each case. What's the differential between the cash value and the death benefit, and how much are they paying in premiums? And of course, there's also, if it's a larger policy, there's also a secondary market for life insurance policies, and that's worth investigating as well before you just drop the whole thing.
Okay, so does this technique limit the nursing homes or the type of room you would have access to?
So it does not limit nursing homes at all. Virtually every nursing home in Massachusetts accepts MassHealth. The room issue is a tougher question. So typically you're not going to do this until you're in a nursing home already. So you're going to be probably going to be private pay. You're either going to be private pay or Medicare pay for the first several months, and the process takes a while to consolidate assets and liquidate them and buy the annuities. So you're going to pay at the private pay rate for some period of time, and so moving from private pay or Medicare payment is a little different because you might be in a particular wing of the facility. So let's say moving from private payment to MassHealth coverage does not affect what room you're in.
Okay, and I think the last one we've got for today. So if Roth IRA assets a large portion of the nursing home patient, does it have to be taken out of the Roth to be put in an immediate non-taxable annuity?
I actually don't know the answer to that. My guess is yes, but it is also certainly possible, since you can annuitize within an IRA, maybe it's possible you can annuitize within a Roth as well. But since that shouldn't be taxed when you draw it, it probably shouldn't really matter as a practical matter.
Okay, great. Thank you. So I think that's all the time we have for today. If we didn't get to your question, we will absolutely follow up. So thank you everyone for attending, and we hope you found the information valuable and useful. Thanks to you, Harry. And we will have a recording of the presentation available if anybody was not able to attend, or if you want to pass it along to colleagues or to family members, we'll send it via email in the following week. And please see all our contact information if you need additional follow-up. And lastly, we have next month's webinar, so mark your calendars, Thursday, March 22nd, for asset protection for seniors. So that's it, and thanks to everyone, and hope you have a great day.
Thank you all.